Update. Am I the a-hole for respecting my late wife's wishes about keeping her family out? Original story. My wife unfortunately passed away last year when our daughter was only 3 months old. It was very difficult to get through, but my little girl and I are keeping it together. My daughter is 16 months now, and there's been pressure from my wife's sister to let her side of the family see my daughter. The issue is, my wife had absolutely no contact with her family since she was 18. So 16 years of not seeing them. Her home life was something she never wanted to talk about. It always made her upset, so I never pushed her to tell me. All I know is that they were manipulative and abusive in some form. She left as soon as she was 18, changed her last name, and never spoke to them again. 4 years ago, she got into contact with her older sister, and she's the only person my wife allowed into our lives. By that, I mean we met through video chat, but never actually in person. We still maintained contact after my wife passed, and we met a couple times before and during my wife's funeral. My sister-in-law called me a few weeks ago. She mentioned her parents would really like to meet their granddaughter and want to start over. They didn't attend my wife's funeral because they knew she wouldn't want them to be there. One thing my wife always made clear is that she did not want them near our daughter. Ever. I told my sister-in-law this. Well, she got very upset. She said it's been years, and yes, her parents were awful people. Again, won't say exactly what they did, but losing their daughters made them reflect on things. And they want to meet my daughter since my wife never gave them that chance. She's still trying to convince me, and so far I've said no. Each time I just feel more and more bad for denying them. But it's what my wife wanted. Her parents found my Facebook. Pretty sure sister-in-law might have told them, and I've gotten dozens of messages begging me to let my daughter know her mom's side of the family. And I shouldn't keep her from knowing her grandparents for past mistakes. None of them will leave me alone, and sister-in-law has said a few times that I may be grieving losing a wife, but to have some empathy for them losing a child. Because right now, I'm being too heartless for denying them the chance to meet the only piece of my wife they have left. I am at my wit's end with this, because I am not sure if I'm being a-hole or not. I don't know the whole reason why my wife never wanted to see them again. Even if I did though, I'd still like to honor her wish. The way they are being, however, makes it hard not to wonder if I am. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not a a-hole. All I know is they were manipulative and abusive in some form. The best prediction of future behavior is past behavior. None of them will leave me alone. I'm at my wit's end with this because I am not sure if I'm being a-hole or not. You are getting a glimpse of their manipulative tactics. One thing my wife always made clear is that she did not want them near our daughter. Ever. Honor her wish. If the family really didn't attend a funeral to respect her wishes, I'm sure they'd do the same here. Don't let them near your daughter ever, OP. And talk to a lawyer. The death of a parent can be grounds for grandparents' rights. Do not even answer. Not answering is a response, and many times better than saying no. You gotta protect your daughter the way your wife tried to protect her and herself. The only thing you know is that they were manipulative, yet your wife could get very upset if her family was mentioned. So imagine all the trauma she had to deal with. Maybe she was the space goat, and that's why her sister defends them. Either way, break contact with the sister too. Does she keep in contact with you out of genuine interest of her nephew/niece, or because she sees that the door could be slightly open to let her parents in, now that the factor didn't want them is dead? What if one day you meet with the sister and suddenly you see two older people with her? They won't let you escape. This is not a coincidence that now they want to be in your lives. They already wanted to insert themselves, and a channel to that was the sister, who has probably given them a lot of information and photos they may have shared with her. This sister-in-law is fighting her parents to fight for them now, and the fact that neither she nor your wife told them exactly why your wife went no contact is terrifying. She's crossing boundaries left and right. She's shown you who she is, so believe her and cut her off. Not a-hole. Do not let them have anything to do with your daughter. The last thing you want is to allow them to have a relationship with your daughter. And then after a while, you see exactly why your wife didn't want anything to do with them. Because depending where you live, if they have an established relationship with your daughter, they can go for grandparents' rights. As of right now, they have no grounds. Cut the sister-in-law off too. She's just giving you a taste of how toxic the rest of your wife's family are. Protect your child. Thank you for the advice. With everything on my plate, it's just been so overwhelming, and now this whole situation. I want to be able to honor my wife's wishes, whatever the reason was that made her cut all contact with them. And now for the update. Thank you everyone for all the lovely comments and support. I was really worn down with this whole ordeal, so all your input was so very appreciated. There were a lot of you that expressed your concerns about what my wife's family's intentions were and warned me about taking precautions to keep my daughter safe. I have taken these into consideration and have made steps to ensure they have no access to any information that could disclose our location. And yes, in the end, I did decide it was best to cut off all contact, not only with my wife's parents, but her sister too. I tried to get through to her many times about why I'd like to respect my wife's call on this since she knew her family best and what they did. Despite all the reassurance that her parents have changed, she still refused to actually say what went down. So that was not all convincing for me. Once I blocked them all, I was getting calls from different numbers the following days. I sent one final message to her sister stating they're never allowed near me or my daughter, and if they ever tried to come harass us, I will get authorities involved. Since then, it was radio silence for the last couple weeks, but I decided to play it safe a few days ago and changed my phone number. I've also deleted my Facebook since I don't use it that often, but I've put my other social media accounts on private. Got many great suggestions from many of you about how to make sure they have absolutely no access to my daughter, so I really appreciate that. I've saved a few of these comments in case I need some extra tips in the future as my daughter gets older and starts school. Since I last posted and have caught contact, I feel like I can finally breathe. You have no idea how stressful and draining the whole thing was for me. So really, thank you all for the help. I've been more at peace putting this all behind me and focusing on my beautiful little girl. Just wanted to leave this update since I know there was a lot of concern about how this would all play out. Thanks again, internet strangers. You can tell you did the right thing because they were already bringing a lot of bad energy without them being in yours or your daughter's life yet, and now never. You have no idea how stressful and draining the whole thing was for me, so really. So very true. My God, I didn't realize just how exhausted I truly was until after I completely blocked them off. Please tell me you have a will and a plan if, God forbid, anything happens to you. These people have shown themselves to be untrustworthy in concerns to your child. Oh, absolutely. We already had one prepared before my wife passed. My daughter's godparents, my sister and her husband, would be the ones to look after her. I remember reading your original post, and I'm happy to hear that you worked it out. Based on the way your sister-in-law was deflecting the question of what happened, I think the reason why your late wife went no contact, and why she never told you, would absolutely justify keeping your child away from them. The possibilities are endless, but all progressively worse. If you know if the authorities were involved or other people in your late wife's life that would have an idea, it might be worth it to look into it, / get a private investigator, just so you have that peace of mind. Regardless, you made the right decision, and best wishes. I've thought about that, but part of me isn't sure if I'd feel better or worse knowing what happened and what exactly it was that my wife had to live with in silence. I'm still thinking about it. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my sister-in-law back in my home after she found out a family member was dying, caused my cat's disappearance, and laughed about it? Right before lockdown, I invited my brother and his wife, my sister-in-law, over for dinner. We just gotten a new cat who was kiddish and still adjusting. We made a little nest for the cat in our laundry room. The room is an exterior door which we keep closed and locked 100% of the time. The cat loved the laundry room because of the warmth and the darkness / quiet. I introduced my sister-in-law to the cat. Then we went to have dinner in the dining room. My sister-in-law got a distressing call from someone on her side of the family about a dying relative. She was upset. She went into the laundry room to take the call. Upon hearing the news that the family member was about to receive last rites, she unlocked the exterior door and went outside to get fresh air, leaving the door wide open. Our cat darted out the door. We haven't seen him since. My children were heartbroken at the loss of their cat. At first, I was in a place of just chalking it up to that's life. After all, my sister-in-law had just received a very upsetting call. I didn't blame her for having a strong emotional reaction. But a few months into lockdown, she started making jokes about the incident. She laughed it off when I asked her to stop because the loss of our cats was upsetting. The jokes have continued, and I've made a decision that she won't be welcome in our household until she apologized for joking about the incident. My brother's pretty mortified, but says he doesn't want to get in the middle of it. My kids don't really care one way or the other because they're not a huge fan of her. She started complaining to other family members though, so I have to know. Reddit, am I the a-hole for banning her from the household until she apologizes for her jokes? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. That's horrible. What exactly was the funny part of that incident? You losing your cat or her family member dying? Exactly. I was wondering the same thing. What is there to joke about? The fact that she's making jokes about the situation makes me wonder if she didn't do it on purpose, opening the door knowing the cat was in the room. Not a day-hall. I get that she was upset at first, and I don't blame her for it. But to make jokes about it, and then to not stop making jokes when asked to stop, that I don't understand. I'm sorry for her loss, and I'm sorry for yours. But she's the a-hole for not apologizing. Not the a-hole. A pet is always to some degree a family member, usually more so to kids involved. Causing the cat to run away is bad, but can be explained with stressful news. Joking about it is heartless and shows a lack of empathy for the kid's situation that would make me reconsider my relationship with her if I was your brother. Not the a-hole. What a heartless person. No empathy or awareness. There's nothing funny about that situation. I can't imagine how she's not recognizing that it was forgiven only because of the grave circumstances. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be around my husband's stepsister anymore? My female 33 husband, male 34, has a stepsister, female 34, whose every relationship she has ended up in court. She always claims it's not her fault, but when the facts come out, it doesn't always seem that way. When she was married, she was horrible to her husband, always made fun of him, yelled at him if he didn't do things for her, etc. She'd be condescending to him and would rarely let him go out to have fun. She's very overweight and very unhappy about that. Also, I have learned that she's unhappy that she doesn't have children by now. When we first started dating, my husband used to talk about how she was the worst and hated her and how awful she was. And I would tell him that he should work it out and be nice and be the bigger person. After all, it's his sibling. They since have figured it out. My husband also has a problem where when he gets mad, he gets crazy and will start lying. You can't calm him down. If I don't walk away from it, the lies and outbursts get more and more insane. Recently, my husband was mad. I think it was that I didn't clean when I said I would. He started getting more irate, and after a while falsely claimed that I kicked him and that he was going to call the cops and destroy my life and tell them that I beat him. I did not do this. I left to create space, and because that was a scary situation. He immediately went to his stepsister. They made a plan to continue the lies. She egged him on to divorce me, defriended me in social media to create the story that I shouldn't have access to her info because it's dangerous. She had never heard of any problems in our relationship before, until this day. No one had. I tried hard to have a good relationship with her, so it was shocking that she immediately was happy and told him what he needed to do instead of giving me the benefit of the doubt. I had to go to my mother-in-law to get my husband to stop and admit what they were doing. He then admitted the lies and also told his stepsister. She said it didn't matter and doesn't change a thing. I believe that she wants my husband to divorce me so that she doesn't have to be the only divorcee in the family. She sent him mediators and told him not to speak with me. She egged him on to get a lawyer. She since talked to him on the phone and started making up things like how she sees I'm so cold to him. This isn't true. I've asked our mutual friends and they tell me it's the opposite. I've asked his mom and she said absolutely not. I've told my husband we can work it out, but I'm extremely hurt and feel uncomfortable being around his stepsister knowing that she's trying to create a situation where he leaves me. I have no problem with him being around her. I just would not like to be. especially since neither of them have done anything to apologize about it all. And I now know she's trying to manipulate my marriage. But my husband says that's not an option for me, and is angry about that. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be around his stepsister anymore and have dinners with her? You're the a-hole for trying to work it out. Why would you stay married to such a person? He's a copy of the sister. Sorry, I might be harsh, but geez, respect yourself. Okay, not the a-hole, but I'm so confused here. Your husband wanted to lie to get you arrested for DV. Lied to his family about it and wanted to divorce you. He has not apologized yet and refused to do the one thing you ask of him to make the relationship work, for you not to have to interact with his sister. But yet, you put all the blame on his sister as if she started all this. The name of this post should read, Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be around my husband anymore? Not the a-hole. You need to leave him. He is just as toxic. Not the a-hole. I wouldn't be around his sister anymore either. I also wouldn't be around a husband either. I'd be sure to have evidence that they lied and made it all up as well just to be safe. Knowing that your husband would lie and say those things is scary, and you forgiving him could come back to bite you. I'd run far, far away. I do. He does that stuff enough that when he gets that way, I start recording. Even with the recording, he still tried to maintain his lies. Update. Am I the a-hole for responding to my father's request for a relationship with a PowerPoint? Original post. If I'm the a-hole here, I'll own it. I'm not sorry, but it would be good to know because the rest of my family thinks this went too far. My 24 female mom died when I was 7 from leukemia. I have very few memories of her from before she was sick, and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with her in her last year. But she was an artist, and until she couldn't anymore, she would make me little collages when she was in the hospital with drawings and photos and messages for me. My grandmother put them all in a book for me after she died. I wanted to be like my mom, and my counselor thought it would help, so I started a journal where I would do kind of a similar thing. And I've done at least 1 page a week all these years ever since my mom died. More when I miss her or have something hard going on. So, I have a kind of unique record of my mental state over the last 16 years. My father remarried when I was 9. My stepmother really leaned hard into the I'm your mom now, and my father didn't stop her. It improved when they had my half-brother because she basically forgot about me then. Unfortunately, he got cancer when he was 3, and I pretty much ceased to exist for my father. He was either working or gone with my brother, but I spent all my teen years mostly at home alone or with my grandparents. The mantra was that my brother needed to be the focus because he might die, so I needed to not be selfish since I was healthy. I stopped trying to talk to him when I was 16, and it was a dark time. I moved out when I was 18 and cut them off completely. My grandparents let me know that my brother died a couple of years ago, but respected my desire to remain no contact with my father. He recently reached out to them because he wants to see me and talk. I went through my old journals and made him a PowerPoint with images of the entries where I had talked about being frustrated and feeling abandoned and unwanted. Some with literal quotes of things my dad had said to me during arguments, even the really dark stuff from when I was seriously depressed. Then, I ended it with a photo of one of my mom's collages where she had written, "Remember that your dad and I are always here for you." And I wrote underneath it, "You failed. Go away." I felt like him being able to see it from my literal perspective would communicate why I don't want him back better than I could. Evidently it worked, but a little too well, because I've been bombarded by family telling me that it's understandable that I don't want to see him, but what I sent gutted him. And he's completely fallen apart after reading through it, and it was unnecessarily cruel. Maybe it was. I know my bar for that is kind of weird sometimes. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. A couple of follow-up notes since it came up to comments. 1. I loved my brother. I don't resent him. He was a good kid and I wish he was still with us. None of this is his fault. To me, it is completely my father's and to a lesser extent, stepmother's. The parents prevented me from spending time with him as he got sicker. So I wouldn't have been allowed to be there for him even if I had been able to, which I wasn't towards the end because I was also struggling to stay alive. 2. I have empathy. I understand what my father lost. I was there. I also lost same people plus effectively my father. Even so, to me there was no excuse for completely shutting your own kid completely out of your life, while also preventing them from getting any kind of help. I understand depression and freezing up. I've been there. And I still, even not being an adult, managed to consider the impact of my behavior on other people. If he was that bad off, he should have given me up to be raised by someone else. My mom's parents asked, and he wouldn't agree to let me stay with them full time. I could have had a dad that was able to occasionally tell me he loved me, even if it was just a text message. Alternatively, I could have lived with my grandparents and had people around me who cared about me every day, even if that wasn't my father. I got neither, and every request for help of any kind was met with "suck it up." I can empathize with having to function while breaking down inside, but I can't empathize with what he did. 3. I gather from relatives, who have backed off after some hard boundary setting, that my father and stepmother split not long ago and are in divorce proceedings, which is why he reached out now, and why the rest of the family was upset with how I responded at a time. He wasn't in a good place already. I've told them that if they care about him, to encourage him to keep away from me, refuse to pass on any messages, and try to get him into inpatient care or something if they're that worried he's going to do something rash. I don't want anything to do with him, and I've told them that I don't want to hear about anything that happens after this point, but the rest of his family love him, so for their sake I hope he pulls himself together. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. I have a saying, if the truth about your conduct paints you in a bad light, the problem isn't with the truth, it's with your conduct. If the truth hurts your dad, it's his own to deal with and not on you. I like to say, if the truth hurts, you deserve it. In my experience with narcissists, that doesn't resonate the same way, which is why I started saying it the other way. Doesn't stop them from trying to gaslight the situation. It didn't happen that way, etc. So when you show proof and tell them their conduct is the problem, not the truth, it helps take the wind out of their sails. It's not a surefire thing with narcs, but it really helps deflate them. Not the a-hole in the slightest. You told your dad how you felt, and it made him have to confront his failure as a parent. It is not your fault he neglected you. He is upset because he knows that what you put in a PowerPoint is the reality of how he treated you when you were just a child. Now that the truth is out and you have reestablished no contact, I hope you are able to let go of some of the anger you have at him and know that you did nothing to cause how he treated you. I'm no contact with my dad, and have been able to find a lot of peace in the life I have built without him. I hope for the same for you. Not the a-hole. How arrogant of OP's family to expect OP to cover up OP's feelings for your terrible father. Now for the update. A bunch of people have been asking for an update, so I'm doing it here instead of on the main sub because the original blew up more than I want to deal with again. I had a talk with my paternal grandparents over Christmas vacation and showed them the PowerPoint. They had no idea that things were as bad as they were, or that I was actively self-harming at a time, and that the accidents I had as a teen were not really accidents. So while they think it was still dangerously harsh under the circumstances, they understand better where I'm coming from, admitted that my father messed up big time, and that the family should have been more involved with me, instead of just supporting him and my brother. They said that on the surface they thought I was fine and just having trouble adjusting, but if they had known about the things described in the journal, they would have insisted my father get help. They do want me to reconcile with him, but they understand why it might be too late for that. So they've agreed not to bring him up unless I do first, and not pass on information either way. So that was actually productive. As for my father, I know a lot of people think I'll regret it if I don't reconcile/forgive/whatever, but I'm not so sure that's true. I've tried to imagine a conversation with him that wouldn't make things worse, and I can't. Best case scenario? He's sorry and has a good grovel, but honestly, I think hearing that would just make me hate him more. Worst case scenario, nothing has really changed and I have to walk away before I end up with an assault charge. I also just can't imagine any real benefit or function to having him in my life, so reconnecting seems like a lot of work for no gain. As far as forgiveness, I don't know if that's actually possible. Apathy maybe. As far as I know, he's alive. I've made it super clear that anyone who tries to give me information about him that I don't request will also get the chop, so I'm probably not going to get any further updates. I'd rather just go back to forgetting he exists. For me, I'm probably as fine as I'm going to be. I have therapy and meds, so I can pass for a functional human most of the time. My deal with myself is that I have to at least stick around until my maternal grandparents pass so they don't hurt and I can wrap things up for them. So in the meantime, I'm working on finding other ways in Detra. Spite, possibly. Next story. Am I the a-hole for putting medical fees on my mom's credit card? Plus update. Original post. I, female 25, was given temporary guardianship of my baby sister, female 15, for 6 weeks in the fall, while my parents, male 48 and female 46, had to be overseas for several reasons. Our parents left me with mom's car and keys, as well as her credit card for any expenses I might run into. On the first day that she stayed with me, my sister told me she had been having really bad tooth pain for a few weeks now. She was chewing only in one side of her mouth and sort of hesitant to eat. I told her I'd set her up a dentist's appointment, and I did make her one later in the week, but the next day she had a fever, and her face looked somewhat swollen on that side. Plus, she said her pain was much worse. So I called the dentist again, and they were able to see her that day. It ended up being an infected abscess. We needed to pull the tooth, drain the abscess, and get her antibiotics. My parents' insurance covered a lot of it, but I wasn't sure about what to do about the rest. And my parents weren't answering the phone all day due to time zone difference. So, I just put down mom's credit card for the amount that needed to be covered right then, as well as to pay for the antibiotic prescription when I picked it up. I didn't think much of this at the time, but when my parents found out, they were pissed. Dad said the credit card was for standard everyday expenses like food and gas, not emergency funds, which they didn't specify this before nor provide separate money for emergencies, and that I overstepped my bounds by dropping a large sum of money and such a rash and expensive choice that mom was going to have to pay off. I offered to pay it back since it's technically within my means, but he said forget it. It's too late now due to my impulsivity. Mom also made an offhand comment about how I didn't triple check to make sure my sister actually needed medical attention, rather than trying to get out of school. This was a while ago, so I thought it was behind us. My parents told me we weren't gathering for the holidays this winter, but I found out yesterday from my sister that a bunch of family had visited and my parents hosted. So I'm sure they're more upset than I thought. My take is that I made a necessary decision for my sister's well-being and I don't regret it. But I could have done more to make sure I handled it in a more appropriate way financially, and maybe waited to go through with anything until we could get in touch. However, I offered to reimburse and was turned down. As the acting legal guardian at the time, it seemed urgent. I was worried about my little sister and the treatment needed to be paid for. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Absolutely not the a-hole, but your parents sure are. A dental abscess is not the kind of thing you ignore, and certainly isn't an excuse to get out of school. Left untreated, it can result in sepsis, aka blood poisoning. As I am a cynical person, I'd say they're angry because they've been ignoring your sister's complaints, and something that should have been treated early got worse, until it became an abscess needing expensive treatment. You've been a better parent than them. Knowing my parents, I think you're probably right. But knowing my sister, I think there's a solid chance she didn't even bother telling them because she knew I was going to be her temporary guardian soon. I've had to help her get antibiotics for UTIs and stuff before. They're good parents in literally every other aspect, but this is a real and serious issue I have with the way they raised us. Good parents don't medically neglect their kids. Not the a-hole. Do your parents realize that your sister could have died if the abscess was not dealt with? It's a pretty serious thing when you get an infection so close to the sinuses and brain, especially if it was an upper tooth. It was damn serious and you did the right thing. What would your parents have done if they were there? Let your sister get sicker and sicker and end up in hospital or worse? In fact, they're probably negligent if they don't take her for regular checkups. Our parents are alright, but they tend to be weird about medical stuff. They don't actually believe us or act like we're making it out to be worse than it really is. I can count on one hand the number of times I went to the dentist before moving out, and I've helped my sister access treatment when our parents wouldn't on several occasions, but nothing like this before. Assuming their stance hasn't changed, they said that I should have waited to take her in until I got in touch with them and talked out payment options. They were insistent that the problem was how I paid. They just also made multiple comments about being impulsive or not believing her right away. I get that maybe it messed with her credit, but I thought we had established payments before they even left. No, it doesn't mess with your credit in any way to put an expense on an existing card then pay it off. They give you a card to cover expenses. Your sister had what was a genuine medical emergency that could have put her in the hospital or even killed her. You say this isn't new behavior, that your parents have always been funny about medical issues and didn't always take you to be treated when they should have. That can be considered abuse. You're not the a-hole, and quite honestly, the fact that you think you might be tells me that your parents have not quite been the good people you say they were. By the way, I'm a 43 male with a daughter. I know kids sometimes lie about illnesses to avoid going to school or something, but in general, you can tell when that's likely the case. If my daughter says she's sick or something hurts or whatever, I talk about it with her, and I take whatever action seems appropriate. This is how things like this should be handled. And now for the update. The other night, I talked to my sister a bit about what happened, and she said Mom and Dad didn't tell her they weren't inviting me to Christmas. When she asked where I was on Christmas morning, my dad told her I wasn't able to make it. She knew that was BS because I have told her for sure if something came up. And when she got a chance to talk away from all the visiting family, she let me know what was up. After we called, she apparently got pretty worked up and decided to confront our parents about not inviting me, and pressed really hard on the subject of the credit card, and that they're still mad that I kept her from dying while I was her guardian. Mom started crying. Dad started yelling at Mom that it is her fault her daughters are like this. Sister told Dad to shut the heck up and don't talk about me like I'm not here. Dad then backhanded my sister. She told me that I obviously called CPS. Some other stuff happened I won't even get into, and now my sister is at my apartment. My dad has an order from law enforcement not to be on the same property as her for at least a week. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I haven't heard from my mom except to let me know where she and dad are staying, separate from each other in case anything happens. My sister told me the weeks I was her guardian were the easiest 6 weeks of her life. I told her I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner. We cried a lot, and I let her stay up late to play World of Warcraft with me and make mini cheesecakes. I'll post an update if anything happens, but I think she and I are gonna be okay. I know someone who died from an abscessed tooth. Those things are no joke. These parents are criminals. I've had 2 friends end up in ICU because of abscesses. One had to have surgery to open his chest because the infection had drained into his lungs. The other had to have a shunt put in because the infection was too close to his brain. I hope he saved her sister's life. When her father is old and sick, she can happily not pay a dime for medical treatment, just like dear old dad would have wanted. Jesus, the slow realization of Opie that her parents are bad people, contrary to what she had always believed. Good for AITA for opening her eyes. That was the part that made me want to post this. I'm so glad she realized. I truly dread the thought of kids in this kind of situation who do not have a lifeboat sibling. My sister told me the weeks I was her guardian were the easiest 6 weeks of her life. Ooh boy, that is heartbreaking. Or the fact that she, a teen, knew that her parents would blow off her medical complaints. How many things have they ignored already? Flashback to my broken leg, when my parents refused to take me to a doctor for 2 days because maybe it will get better. I am truly horrified at how many people have also had similar things happen, and I hope you are all taking good care of yourselves both physically and mentally and moving past these childhood traumas. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's parents that they have a 5-year-old grandchild? A couple months ago, I found out my husband of 10 years has a 5-year-old daughter that he has been an active part of raising. No infidelity occurred, but he kept this hidden from me, and it is still a huge betrayal. He also kept this hidden from his parents. I've always had a great relationship with my in-laws. Over the last 14 years, they have truly become my family. My own parents passed away when I was a teenager, and they have taken me in as their adopted daughter. My husband's stepdad even walked me down the aisle at our wedding. My husband never told his parents about this child because he didn't want me to find out. When I found out about everything, I asked if they even knew, and my husband assured me they did not. He also begged me to not tell them. I told him I would not, but told him that he would have to do so himself. He did not, and this past Friday, the stress and anger all caught up to me. I'm not proud of it, but I got way too drunk, and I called his mom and told her everything. Now my husband's entire family's angry with him. His mom is devastated. She loves babies and toddlers. She always wanted more herself, or to one day have grandkids, and now she feels she missed out. And when he went over to try and talk to her yesterday, his stepdad came out and told my husband he wasn't welcome on his property. My husband has some mental health and neurodivergence issues, and my actions this weekend have caused some pretty bad anxiety spirals, and he had to go to the inpatient psych clinic last night. My husband is really angry with me for telling them myself, and the way that I did. He said that was an a-hole move. Now that I'm sitting alone in the house, I am starting to think that he might be right about that. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's mom about a secret baby? Edit. I wasn't going to go into this because it really isn't relevant to the situation that I am asking if I'm the a-hole over. But to ease all the inquiring minds, 6 years ago, my husband was approached by an old friend and her wife asking him to be a sperm donor. My husband and I talked about it, and I told him I was not comfortable with it, and he said he wouldn't go through with it. Supposedly, the friend pressured him, and he did it. This is what he said, so I don't know if it is true. I'm just relaying it as he told me. Friend's wife unexpectedly and sadly passed away, and the husband started co-parenting with his friend around this time. Friend has also lied to me and said they found a different donor. My husband is an active parent to this child now. She calls him daddy, and we are missing at least $25,000 from our family's finances that has gone towards this kid's care. He even lied to me that he was going to a friend's bachelor party, but instead went to Disney with his child and her mother. This is not just a case of him being a sperm donor. Now for the top comments before reading the mini update. Even if he didn't cheat on you physically, he knowingly created a child outside of his marriage, actively raised it, and kept it a secret from you and his family. This was wrong, and he knows it's wrong. Not the a-hole. Looks like he missed the memo on honesty being the best policy in relationships. Absolutely, with a caveat of, does this outfit make me look fat? Which is never a good question to answer honestly. On a more serious note, I cannot believe how much betrayal was involved from both the husband and his friend. Financially, physically, and emotionally. I have no sympathy for a supposed breakdown. I hope Opie gets out soon, finds peace, and keeps the in-laws in the divorce. He has a kid with someone who isn't his wife and he didn't tell you. No matter how it happened, that's a pretty huge secret. He's the a-hole. Not only that, but he lied about a trip to Disneyland that he went with a child and her mother on and said he went camping. I'm stunned at all the YTA votes. What the heck were you supposed to do? This is a huge betrayal. I would have definitely told his mom. She deserves to know. He's been keeping a secret this long. When would he actually tell her? I'm so sorry this happened to you. Not the a-hole. I'm so shocked by these votes. She even gave him a chance to tell them and he did not. He is the a-hole here, and the friend for doing it knowing the wife was against it. Edit/mini update. Yes, my marriage is over due to this. I am absolutely 100% divorcing and have consulted an attorney. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law is terminally ill, and I'm helping to financially support my sister and nibblings while they are dealing with all that. So the divorce has a pin until 2024 at the earliest. I'm probably the a-hole here for the way I spill the beans, but I am not going to beat myself up about it at all. I'm going to get some me time while my husband is in inpatient care. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my fiancé's family dinner after being introduced as his girlfriend? For a little context, I, female 26, and my fiancé, male 32, have been engaged for a year and a half. He was born in Spain, and his family still lives there, and at the time of our relationship of about 4 years, have not visited the States since. I have never been introduced to his family, not even on a FaceTime call, which I always wished changed, but he wanted to make meeting them special. My family have met my fiancé many times, and they all love him. We are also Dominican, so the language barrier with his family wouldn't matter. In February, my fiancé's family planned to visit for about 2 months since it's been so long. I live in my own place, so they'd be staying with my fiancé only. His mom, dad, sister, and brother-in-law all came, and they planned a dinner party with me and some of my fiancé's friends and co-workers, so more like a welcome party. I was beyond excited to meet them and finally announced our engagement. The day came and I went over to his house. My fiancé talked to me prior and told me his family is very outspoken, that if his mom says anything out of line, to not worry about it. He said this concerning our age, cultural difference, and my job, which is a special ed teacher, while my fiancé is a lawyer. I was kind of worried because I didn't want them to think poorly of me based on all that, but he assured me he'd be there to back me up. The party starts and I prepped everything, cooked the food, and set the tables. His parents arrived and see me and ask who I was. He pauses and says I'm his girlfriend. I looked at him shocked, and he gave me a go-along-with-it look. Beyond my better judgment, I agreed. The dinner goes on, and my fiancé's parents make a judgmental comment about the country where my family's from. I corrected them, and then she makes comments about my curly hair and how odd it was. My fiancé said nothing and tried to change the convo. Later on, it was brought up how young I was, and he says it doesn't matter. My job got brought up, and they said there's no way I can survive off my salary. During the dinner, I completely forgot I had my ring on, and his mom spotted it and says, "That's not an engagement ring, is it?" My fiancé gives me an angry look like I was supposed to know I was playing girlfriend tonight and says it's my grandma's old ring. I was fed up. and said we have been engaged for a while and is lying to you for God knows what. I leave without saying another word and get a crap ton of calls from him. He said he wanted to get his mom's approval before announcing, and I told him, then what the heck was the point of engaging in the first place? I was just too angry to just sit there and lie to save his butt. He said his mom thought that was very disrespectful and immature. She doesn't see why I couldn't wait until after and talk to him. She completely dismissed him lying to her face, but that's not my concern. I left the ring in his mailbox and haven't seen them since. He tried contacting my family, but I refused to see him though until I get a true apology and not blaming me for this. Not the a-hole. So for a dinner party at this dude's house, you were expected to do all the cooking and preparation, then pretend to be only a girlfriend. So 32-year-old dude's mommy won't get upset? Run like the wind, and do not look back at this xenophobic, ignorant family, and make this dude your ex. Not the a-hole. Your ex-fiancé is an idiot, not to mention incredibly disrespectful towards you. I'm sure culturally he felt he was supposed to get their permission before getting engaged, but he didn't, and he needed to man up before you were introduced to his family. The idiot part comes in where he didn't talk to you beforehand and get your agreement that you would pretend not to be engaged. Otherwise, of course you were going to wear your engagement ring to meet his family. I mean, they didn't even know Opie existed when they arrived. They had to ask who she was. They didn't know he was seeing anyone. They didn't know she was going to be there. After 4 years. That's so far beyond play girlfriend for a night. There are so many marinara flags. It's like a dang lasagna, not the a-hole. Maybe Romesco flags. He is Spanish after all. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not adopting another woman's child? I'm 25 female. I'm single, live alone, and have a good paying job. Due to an accident when I was a teenager, I cannot have children. I have never wanted children of my own, so this is not as big of a deal to me as it could be. I have friends with kids who think of me as their cool aunt, and I'm happy with that. This is important because of a woman I know, Allie, 18 female, not her real name. Allie is the family member of a woman my brother is good friends with, who's become basically family. Allie lives with this woman, so my whole family knows her pretty well. She's a nice girl who had a daughter, Anne, 8 months female. Her baby was taken away from her due to suspected neglect. Allie decided to tell CPS that I was a safe person to place Anne with since I know the baby and live close by. I would not have had an issue with this except that Allie did not tell me. I got a call the morning after Anne was taken away at 6 a.m. while I was getting ready for work. CPS asked me to calm down and talk with them and take the baby until they have a foster placement opened. I got Anne and my boss was very understanding about me coming to work late. And with a baby, so I had no time to get a sitter for her. And I work alone mostly anyway, so she wouldn't disturb anyone. I had Anne for about a week, and CPS wanted me to get licensed as a foster parent, so she could stay with me while Allie did what she needed to do to get her baby back. Then shortly after I agreed to get licensed, I got a call from Allie's lawyer talking about adoption. Allie did not want Anne back, and tried to paint this picture of me being this infertile woman who could finally be blessed with a kid of my own. I struggled a lot because I do love kids, but I have never wanted my own, and this felt more like Allie was putting off her responsibility onto me. But Allie told me that I could afford it because I made more money than anyone else in my family/friend circle. I got pretty upset and stopped answering Allie's calls after I confirmed with her that she absolutely did not want to get Anne back. I called Health and Welfare and took back my offer of getting licensed, sending them an email from Allie's lawyer where she states she doesn't want custody. At the time, I figured that if Allie wants to put Anne for adoption, that she has the best chance of getting adopted while she is still a baby. It wouldn't be beneficial to Anne for me to foster her in hopes Allie changes her mind, and I don't want to have Anne for years and her start to think of me as her mom. I felt it would be less traumatic for her to get adopted while she is a baby to a family that wants and will love her. I truly thought that was the best option, and I felt I was doing the right thing for Anne. But now I am being called all kinds of names by Allie, and she is trying to twist the story to make it seem like I am burying Anne in the system. She thought that if I adopted Anne that she could still be in her life, but not actually have to be her mom, which is not what I would have allowed if I did adopt her. I am now questioning if I made a right call. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. She's a nice girl. Her baby was taken away from her due to suspected neglect. Allie did not tell me. I'm being called all kinds of names by Allie, and she is trying to twist the story. I'm confused. How on earth is the first statement here compatible with all the others and indeed the entire story? Not a-hole, except for the part where you really don't seem to see Allie very clearly. Thank you. Allow me to clarify because I can see how that's not clear. I meant that up until this point, I've always thought Allie was nice. A bit of an airhead at times, but always friendly. I am sad about this situation, and I think one day she'll really regret all this. It'll be far too late by then, though. She might regret it, but more importantly, if you adopted Anne and allowed Allie to see her, it would then make you the person that Allie would continue to give her children to, because she sure as heck would keep popping them out. Not the a-hole. Sounds like she just wants you around for all the hard work, so that she can just swoop in whenever she wants. That was my first thought. Allie only wants to be a mom when it's convenient for her. She wants someone else to do all the heavy lifting. Nope. Not the a-hole. You went above and beyond a call of duty to take a baby in for any length of time. You deserve kudos for having the best interests of the baby at heart. Seems you're the only one. Stand firm, and don't become a parent until you decide you really want to be one. I honestly expected Opie not to take the child at all. What a twist. Not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not helping my sister with her newborn twins? I'm a 26 female and I have a younger sister, Sadie, 19 female, and we don't talk often. She lives in Canada with her newborn twins, Iris and Layla, while I moved to England a few years ago to study at my dream university. I ended staying here with my now husband, Louis, 30 male. Sadie got pregnant at 18 with Tyler, her boyfriend at the time. Tyler and his sister ended up in a car accident a few months after she announced she was pregnant. He and his sister didn't survive the accident. Sadie was very upset during the rest of her pregnancy, though my parents were luckily there to help her out. Then after her babies were born, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer because of all of his smoking. My mom had to help my dad out a lot. I didn't have as much time to help Sadie with her twins. So Sadie reached out to me a few months ago and asked if we could send her some money every month so she could hire a babysitter for her kids and help my dad. Louis and I agreed, since we are financially stable and could afford it. She was very thankful to us. But a few weeks ago, she reached out again and asked if we could move back to Canada to help with the twins. This time, Louis and I refused. I feel like it's too much. We've built a life here in England, and my husband has a demanding job here and it would take him a while to find another one in Canada. My mom has sent me a few texts begging for me to come back, because they could really use the help, and now I feel kind of bad. Am I the a-hole? Some info on Tyler's family. Tyler's sister is actually his half-sister. They share a dad. His sister is over a decade older than him and has raised Tyler since he was 11. His mom died while giving birth to him, and their dad died of a terminal illness. Her sister's mom just wasn't in her life. You're not required to uproot your life to be additional parents to your sister's children. She was fine to ask. You're fine to say no. No a-holes here. She wasn't fine to ask. It's the most ridiculous request. She's a 19-year-old with newborn twins and a dead baby daddy. I doubt she's concerned with things like etiquette and boundaries right now. Ed is far more concerned with survival and getting the help she obviously needs. I'd cut her a little bit of slack here. Yes, knowing you're beyond your depth and asking for help regardless is a sign of maturity, but it still doesn't mean Opie has to say yes. No a-holes here. No a-holes here. I don't think your sister is an a-hole. She is scared and drowning and she asked for help. You said no and she seems to have dropped it. I am not sure if you texts begging for help makes your mom an a-hole, but she's leaning that way, especially if she doesn't drop it. People are not a-holes for asking for help. They are only a-holes if they don't respect your right to decline. And I do not think you are the a-hole for declining in this case. I agree with this. I can't help but feel deeply sorry for this grieving young 19-year-old single mom of twins, who's also nursing her parents through a lung cancer diagnosis. She really must feel like she's drowning. This isn't her asking Opie to come help with the kids, as much as come help with the entire family's crisis. Opie, if I were you, I would see if I could hire an at-home nurse, or research local services that can help your sister and mom. If they belong to a church, maybe also reach out to them and ask for some help. There are things you can do from England to help alleviate the incredible burden without moving back. Update. Am I the a-hole for exposing my parents' favoritism? Original story. My parents have always favored my younger brother. I was by no means unloved, but it was blatantly obvious who they cared about more. I worked a part-time job to get my first car, but my brother got one as a present. It wasn't new, but was much newer than my car. It was the same with just about anything else, like clothes, video games, and cell phones. I'm now 18 and I'm taking a gap year before community college to work a full-time job and save money for tuition. But a while back, I heard my parents talking about how much they were going to pay for my brother's tuition. I secretly recorded a conversation from around a corner and then came out asking my parents why they were going to pay for my brother's college but not mine. They didn't notice my phone was recording and just said that my brother needs more help. I asked how so, when I wasn't getting any sort of scholarship and he likely wouldn't either. Then I asked a few more questions about why things have always been this way. They got mad, and my father told me that perhaps it's time I move out because they are sick of keeping a roof over my head. I pointed out a parent, but they didn't care. I left the room and in a fit of rage, uploaded a video to 2 different social medias I have, and ranted about how this is how my parents have always been. Well, a few hours later, my parents were pounding at my door. My dad was screaming at me about how I made them look bad. We fought some more, and they left the room fuming. My grandparents contacted me later and said they were appalled, then came to visit with a lot of the family the next day. There was a huge family intervention, and my parents were made to sit on the couch and look at their feet while being told off. It was then I found out they'd been receiving money for years from my grandparents to help with family expenses. My brother looked like he didn't know what to do, so he sided with the rest of the family and said he's noticed how I'm treated as well. My parents gave me a huge apology that sounded forced. My grandparents have offered that I come live with them soon and will cut off the monthly payments to my parents. My father told me I should have never told the rest of the family and now won't talk to me, and my mother has been crying for days. So I'm starting to wonder if I went too far. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not today, home. Your parents are just pissed because people know the truth about them, and they're no longer going to be receiving handouts from your grandparents. That's what they're really upset about, losing their free money. Go live with your grandparents. They sound awesome with how quickly they backed you. Not today, Hall, and wow, very well played. I'm delighted to hear that the rest of your family had your back. Good luck. Right? It's so good to hear that the rest of the family supported Opie, since that never seems to happen in the sub. Not today, Hall, all the way. As someone who was cast aside because my parents favored my younger sibling over my brother and I applaud you loud and clear. Go live with your grandparents if that's what you want, or go stay with friends. I have a feeling you're going to be just fine and excel at whatever career you choose. You didn't go too far. You conquered. Go live with your grandparents, save your money, and get your education. You didn't cause this. They did. Good luck and hugs. And now for the update. I decided to go ahead and call my grandparents to accept their offer to move in. During the phone call, I asked them why there was monthly payments being sent to my parents. Turns out my parents were living beyond their means for a while because my mother quit her job to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. My grandparents decided to help out by sending them money monthly to help with my parents' mortgage, and also to set aside some of that money for college savings for both my brother and I that was to be split evenly. Turns out my parents only planned to put that savings towards my brother's college, and that's also how they bought his car as well. So from now on, my parents are now on their own financially. Likely my mother will have to go back to work to help my dad keep up the mortgage. I confronted my parents and asked why they've always treated my brother as the favorite. Then asked if there was something I needed to know. Turns out there was nothing. Literally nothing. I'm not an affair baby, not even an unplanned pregnancy. They just liked my brother more. I was mad as hell, and we argued a lot before I left the room because I had enough. My grandparents showed up on Saturday with a moving truck. My parents were floored when we started bringing in boxes to pack. My father got in our way, and I reminded him how he said that I should move out, so I am. My mother cried some more and said that my father was just angry in the moment when he said that, and they had been counting on my rent money to help with my brother's college fund. I asked if that meant he would never have had to pay rent like I did when it turns 18. My father then said that since I was taking a gap year to work, then my rent money could have helped my brother, which means they never intended for him to get a job while going to college. My grandpa was enraged and confronted my father, saying he raised him better than this. He chewed him out, saying he's never been more disappointed in him, and they will no longer receive any more financial support, and then said he disowned them both if they ever tried to retaliate against me for exposing them. My father backed down, and neither he or my mother said another word to me. I had a bit of an awkward conversation with my brother as we said our goodbyes to each other, and that was it. I just got in my car, waved, and drove off. I'm now fully moved into my new room at my grandparents' house. It's a little smaller but nice, and my grandparents are very welcoming. I'm going to keep working hard to move forward from here, and I appreciate everyone's support. They had been counting on my rent money to help with my brother's college fund. At that point, any doubts you had should have disappeared. You're leaving forever, and their only thought is, but what about money for us and your brother? Your parents are irredeemable a-holes. Also, I really like your grandfather. My grandpa's an incredible person. He's stern but very nice, and I'll always be thankful for his support. I'm so glad you've got your grandparents. And please tell him that a very impressed internet stranger said I wish he'd adopt me as his grandchild. My dad could use a good telling off like that. Holy heck, that was deservedly brutal. Congrats on escaping your parents, and I hope you have nothing but good things from here on out in life. Thanks. I'm so sorry this happened to you. My dad's parents were just like this for absolutely no reason either. I'm glad your grandparents have helped you move in with them. Kudos to you for trying so hard to buy your own car, etc. Thanks. It took a year of saving from a part-time job to afford a car, but I got a good deal on it and it runs pretty decent. So this whole situation sucks, but there is a bright side here. You know the value of $1 and have developed a good work ethic. You know how to budget month to month, prioritize rent, and save toward big purchases. In a way, your brother was a victim of your parents too. He'll probably have a much harder time than you when he eventually needs to become self-sufficient. They're doing him a tremendous disservice by handing him everything, because as you well know, that isn't how the world works. I agree with you there completely. Hopefully now that my parents will have to budget more and my mother will need to get a job again for the first time in nearly 20 years, my brother will see what it was like to live in my shoes. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad's wife I don't feel comfortable having her walk me down the aisle next to my dad? My mom died when I was 12. Then my dad married Sarah when I was 15. To me, she was always my dad's wife, not my parent. My step-parent if you want to use the title, but the woman my dad is married to always fitted best for me. I think my age played a big part in that, and she was never a female role model for me. She's never someone I went to for maternal advice. Now that I'm getting married, I asked my dad to walk me down the aisle. My fiancé is also getting walked down the aisle by his dad. My dad's wife thought about this and felt since my fiancé's dad never remarried and doesn't have a significant other, she should be included in the walk to show I have two parents and not just one like my fiancé. Therein lies the problem. To me, I do only have one parent. She never filled any kind of significant role in my life. I appreciate her as the woman who makes my dad happy, but I don't feel like she was much of an influential person in my life, and I don't love her like that. So the idea of having her be presented as my second parent feels wrong. I told her I didn't feel comfortable with it, and she told me it was wrong after 10 years of knowing her. She left it alone after that, but then she learned that I took a patch out of my mom's wedding dress to add to mine, and she told me I was refusing to represent all my parents, and that was wrong. I told her yet again I did not feel comfortable with it. She said I was an a-hole, but Dad told her she was overreacting. My sisters are hearing crap about it too. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Who invites themselves into a wedding party? That's obnoxious. Obnoxious people with no boundaries. Tell me about it. No respect for boundaries, obnoxious and entitled stepmother as much. Sounds like stepmother had been jealous of Opie for a long time. When my sister, person closest to in the world, got married, I wasn't in the party, didn't even sit with her, and I didn't care. We had a conversation where she asked if I would be upset because she was trying to keep things simple. And I said, heck no. Honestly, I would have cooked the food and served the table / cleaned if it meant she got to experience the day she wanted. Because that's what matters, not who gets to sit where and what dress they can wear. Without being unkind, you told her plain as day how you felt. She just didn't like what she heard. Stick to your feelings about it, Opie, and let her know you're not entertaining any future discussions about it. If she starts up again, shut it down. Walk away, end a call, do anything else but continue listening to her about it. Also, weird flex that she wants to let the entire gathering know that you have two parents but your fiancé only has one. Weird competition going on there. Congrats on your impending nuptials. Agreed. I've never heard of the mother walking down the aisle with a dad. All the weddings I've been to, the mother of the bride gets escorted individually. I'm so glad to hear your father is supporting you though. Not today home. Your wedding, you choose who walks you down the aisle, if anyone. It just said she should be included in the walk to show I have two parents and not just one like my fiancé? WTF? That's just weird. Since when was aisle walking a statement on how many parents one has? So weird. Honestly, if I was OP, I would have called out that weird comment. Why is it important to lord over the fiancé that she has two parental figures? Weird flex. I think it's more she wants everyone else to realize she's there and thinks she's my parent. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not informing my boy dad that stepdad was adopting me? My boy dad and mom had me when they were dating. He broke up with mom and got with his ex-wife and mom had full custody. He visited like thrice a year and I never went over as his ex didn't let him bring me to her house. I went to the same high school as one of my half-sister and we didn't even acknowledge each other. My stepdad has been my dad for as long as I have known him. He has always been there for me and my step-siblings treated me like baby of the family. It was my stepdad's birthday and my sister paid for the paperwork for me to change my name and for adoption paperwork. He loved it and said it was the best birthday gift he ever received. My brother later said they got me a jersey with my stepdad's surname on it and I posted that on Instagram. My boy dad called me and asked me if I was letting him adopt me. I said yes, it was my idea, and he got upset that I didn't show him the courtesy of informing him. I feel bad because I forgot about him and didn't even consider him when I made the decision. I should have been an adult about it and had a discussion with him, even though I don't need his permission as I am technically an adult. Now for the comments. Not today, home. I should have been an adult about it and had a discussion. Forget this, okay? You don't need to discuss this with him. It was your decision and only yours. He only bothered to see you 3 times per year and thinks his opinion on the matter is important. Lol. I think that the fact that Opie forget about him says a lot about the closeness of the relationship. The guy just hasn't been there. What kind of man allows his wife to ban his kid from his home? That alone sold it. What a contrast in choices. Dad's wife and kids don't want anything to do with Opie. Mom's husband and stepkids welcomed her into the family. Not today, home. He is the one that went away and almost ignored you all his life. He can't all of a sudden decide that he wants to be a parent just because he is hurt. It was not intentional to hurt him, you just forgot. And why would you consider him? You weren't even allowed at his home. He didn't deserve to be remembered. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my girlfriend? So I have a cat named Raven who's 3 years old. My girlfriend of 2 years moved in with me a few weeks ago and it was clear she didn't like my cat. I didn't think it was really a big deal. Until one day I got home and he was just gone. He's not an outdoor cat and he never goes outside. He was gone for hours and I was worried sick. Until my buddy came to my house and returned him saying he found him 2 blocks from my house. I asked my girlfriend how my cat, who has never tried to go out before, ended up that far from my house, and she admitted to kicking him out. I was furious, saying she had no right to kick him out, and told her that since she thought she has the power to kick my cat out, I wanted her out of my house by the end of the month. She cried that she had nowhere to go, and that she would have to live on the streets. I said I didn't care and told her to leave by the end of the month. My friends think I'm being too harsh, but my cat could have died because of her, and I don't want her trying anything else. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The cat was there first. Oh damn. So the girlfriend threw out an indoor black cat during Halloween season? Shelters don't even let people adopt black cats this time of year because people can be very superstitious. Raven is lucky to be alive. Keep her away from the cat. She's going to hurt him, I guarantee it. Let him stay with someone until she's gone. Not the a-hole. This chick is psycho. That's right. She is capable of unspeakable evil and had a proven track record of animal cruelty. No remorse either. That's what I said too. Definitely a psycho. I second whoever said he should get a restraining order. Also, your friends are crazy if they think you're being harsh. They must all be just like her. Not today, hole. She figured out how to live separately from you until a few weeks ago. She can figure it out again. Also, she knew about that cat for 2 years. If she doesn't like the cat, why move in with Opie? Because she thought she could always just get away with getting rid of the cat unilaterally. She's acting like this is an ask forgiveness, not permission situation, when it's actually a holy cow, get the heck out of my life, you an empathetic monster situation. Stand your ground, OP. She is self-centered to the point of not caring if a living creature lives or dies or suffers. Your cat is worth way more than a relationship with someone like that. Consider dumping the friends too. Edit. To be clear, I mean dump the friends telling OP is being an a-hole for kicking her out, not necessarily the friend that rescued the cat. Not an a-hole. But still, I think there's a lot of red flags in this relationship for her to just dump your cat. Yeah, I don't think we're suited to be together. I would agree with you there. I was never a fan of cats, and my girlfriend had one, well, before we met. She would always joke with me, "Hey man, she was here first. I'll be fine without you." We moved in together back in April, and I learned to accept said cat, and even had some fun together. Our cat passed away very suddenly about a month ago. I cried more than I expected, and I realized I was a bigger fan of my girlfriend's cat than I let on. 100% not the a-hole. Miss you, Luna. Am I the a-hole for telling my grandchildren's father I don't owe his other children anything? I lost my youngest daughter, Joy, a decade ago. She left behind her husband and 2 children who are now 15 and 16 years old. My daughter was very close to her dad and me, and when she was at her sickest, she begged us to stay in the kids' lives and make sure they always knew she loved them and that we were her family just as much. She mentioned how worried she was that her husband would encourage them to forget her and would try to replace her for them with a new woman. She asked that we leave anything we might have left her to her children. We assured her we would never let the relationship end and that we would make sure they had a good life and would remember her always. 8 months after she died, her husband moved his now wife into their home. She had a baby with someone else and was also expecting a baby with someone. At that point, he did attempt to make it a package deal, where we could not see our grandchildren without treating his now stepchildren as our grandchildren, and that we were to treat all future children of his the same. Otherwise, we would need to be cut out to give our grandchildren the chance to form the new family bonds without interference from us. That they deserved a chance to have another mother and only see the new children as true siblings. Their lawyer told them we would have a case to get grandparents' visitation. We also sought on if we were denied access, if we could obtain that, and we were told, given our close relationship with the children, that it would be easy to get access through the courts. This led to us getting minimal access, but it was all that was needed, because our grandchildren were glad to see us, and their aunts and uncles, and cousins. In the last few years, my former son-in-law has found himself estranged from his own family, and his wife's family are also no longer in the picture, and has 6 children not counting my grandkids in his home, with no family or support outside of him and his wife. Now that my grandchildren are teenagers, they seek to spend more time with us, and their lives have benefited from it. We admittedly spoil them more than some would like because of the circumstances, but they are wonderful children. Their father confronted me recently about his other children and how they have no extended family and are suffering seeing their siblings being spoiled. He also said we had already come between our grandchildren and their siblings because they are not close and have never asked for their siblings to be part of the extended family they have. He told me I owe it to his children to step in and give them love and some of the same spoiling. I told him I did not owe his children anything and that I would never forgive him for what he attempted to do before. He told me I was cold-hearted and callous. Part of me wonders if he's right because the children are innocent. And even though I have never considered them family, they are still young and nothing to do with my former son-in-law's actions. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Who the heck moves in their girlfriend 8 months after their wife dies? I feel bad for the other kids because it sounds like their parents are awful, but that's not your problem. I have heard so many depressing stories about guys doing exactly this today. WTF? And here you see one of the few situations in which grandparents' rights actually matter. And to boot, one baby and pregnant with another baby that wasn't his. Like what? He either really liked this chick, or he was desperate to have a woman in the house to do everything for him. Not the a-hole. He never should have tried to force his kids on you. It's not your fault. All the rest of the family is estranged from them. It's great you guys are willing to do so much for your grandchildren and being so supportive for them. We love them and want the best for them. I'm just glad they stayed close to us despite all this. Former son-in-law's drowning because he's made some very bad decisions. Make sure you reserve resources to ensure that he doesn't drag down your grandchildren with him. In particular, to assist them in getting into some kind of college or post-high school training if your resources stretch that far. As soon as they turn 18, see if you can help them get out of that household. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's the reason our parents are divorcing? About a month ago, my 24 male parents, 55 female and 57 male, announced they were getting divorced. This has been quite a shock to most people, as they seem to be having no issues out of the ordinary. However, I have been the one privy to the information of why they are divorcing. It's because of my sister Anne, 26 female. Anne is a deadbeat. She has never worked more than 14 hours a week since getting expelled from college for multiple acts of cheating and code of conduct violations 5 years ago. All she does is sit at home most days watching TV or going over to her loser boyfriend's house to get high. She feels no need to support herself and expects my parents to carry her through life. She's been in therapy since she was 14, but cannot keep one for more than a year because she gets dropped as a client due to her lying and inability to show up to appointments. My parents have spent over a decade trying to get some mental issue pinned down for Anne, and all they've gotten is, she's just a lazy narcissist. Last year, my mom decided enough was enough and planned to kick Anne to the curb and wash her hands off her. Dad disagreed, and in the end, the two's marriage got torn apart. I know, because both have come to me basically admitting that if Anne was not a factor, divorce would not even be a consideration. I don't get along with Anne for a variety of reasons. She has always been a bully and owes me a large sum of money at the moment. The thing that boils my blood, though, is that she's oblivious to the situation between our parents, or just doesn't care. She had a literal tantrum when the possibility of the house being sold came up because she didn't want to have to move to an apartment with my dad. Then last night, I found myself at my parents' house and had the misfortune of talking to Anne. Anne mentioned that she's getting really sick of mom's melodramatic antics and not just leaving the house to her and my dad. Something struck me at that moment, and I just asked Anne if she really does not care that she's such a selfish, garbage, waste of space human that she's driven her parents to get a divorce. I elaborated and told her the full truth that she is in fact the only reason they're getting a divorce, because mom has finally realized that there is no hope Anne will ever grow up. The fallout this caused was massive. Anne acted as if I sold her out to the Romans, and my parents argued between she deserves to know and we told you that in confidence. Because Anne cannot keep her mouth shut either, the entire extended family has begun to hear too. So, I want to know before opinion starts forming outside the inner circle if I'm the a-hole here. Nope, not the a-hole. Sorry, some tough love is needed for Anne. Doubt she's gonna get her act together, but she needed to hear it. Not everything is about her. Hopefully, she can get her act together and be a contributing member of society, and your parents can get back together with some therapy. The divorce is about her, though. It's really not, though. It's the fact that the father chose his daughter over his wife. The real issue is that the father chose his child over his wife, and his wife is not his first priority. This is just a nail in the coffin for her, and she's finally decided to leave after years of having her feelings be dismissed by him. This happens all the time, but usually it's the woman who chooses her children over a man. Not the a-hole. Daddy's girl needs to have a reality check. Correct. And let's be honest here. The sister isn't the reason they are getting divorced. It's the father's coddling and inability to hold her accountable, whilst the mother has had enough. If dad grew a pair and supported his wife, they probably wouldn't be divorcing. Everyone sucks here. Honestly, my initial judgment was you're the a-hole. But the more I read, the more it was just eek. I have slight reservations because therapy started quite young. Did anything ever happen? Or she exhibited behaviors they knew needed help? Either way, she appears to be able to grasp the concept of reality, has a relationship with someone, and can fend for herself when needed. She's just an a-hole. She's always had anger issues ever since I could remember. I don't know/remember the exact reason why she started at 14, but I want to say it was a recommendation after Anne started fighting at school. I know her second bout with therapy at 16 started because of self-harm threats. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not defending my sister after my husband said, "Good luck, you'll need it marrying her," to her fiancé? My husband used to get along with my family until my sister falsely accused him of cheating on me. He understandably doesn't like her anymore, but is usually civil towards her. My sister recently announced her engagement, and while everybody congratulated her, my husband turned to her fiancé and said, "Good luck, you'll need it marrying her." I was shocked he would say something like that, especially in front of my parents. But I never said anything as I didn't want to fight with him in front of everybody. My sister kept giving me a look like she expected me to say something, and when I didn't, she yelled at him herself. I made us leave because I could see us being there wasn't helping the situation. My sister has been texting me about what happened, mostly to take digs at my husband. She gets angry every time I ask her to stop, and thinks I'm siding with him when he was in the wrong. Things have gotten worse after I told her I wouldn't be going wedding dress shopping with her, as she's blaming my husband for that too. She sent him some messages directly, and he fanned the flames by saying he wouldn't let me go, and she would be lucky if we even attend a wedding. I've spoken to my husband and asked him to stop making things worse. He has agreed to stop responding to her, but she wants me to make him apologize and to agree to visit when she wants to go wedding dress shopping to prove I'm not siding with him, which I cannot do. Am I the a-hole? There are two situations here. The sister accused her husband of cheating on you in a malicious or very public way that created a lot of burned bridges, in which case you should probably be defending your husband here, or at least keeping him away from events with somebody he justifiably hates. The sister accused her husband of cheating privately, out of genuine concern or due to a misunderstanding, in which case him being frosty is reasonable. But he absolutely shouldn't be making a public scene about it if he's still agreeing to actually meet up with or hang out with your sister. Either way, multiple people involved are behaving badly, yourself in all situations, so this is a clear everyone sucks here. You also cannot play peacekeeper without telling your sister clearly, "My husband will never want anything to do with you due to the cheating accusation, and that is not a problem you can solve." So my sister was staying with us for a while, and she thought it was weird that he wasn't home that often, and that he was always on his phone or on his laptop, so she was convinced he was cheating. I told her repeatedly that he wasn't and that he was working, but she wouldn't let it go. She tried to prove it by taking pictures of him with / kissing his female friend's cheek, but I told her they didn't prove anything. She thought I was in denial, so she sent them to our family because she thought they would talk sense into me, but it's just caused unnecessary drama. Did she sincerely apologize to your husband? If not, then it's understandable that he's still upset. She's never apologized to him directly. Well then, he doesn't owe her an apology. If she had apologized and he accepted her apology, then I might call his comment a-hole territory. But since she didn't even apologize to him for trying to break up your marriage, cause that's what she tried to do, then she got what she deserves. Not the a-hole for not defending her against her husband, but Softy or the a-hole for not standing up for him when she complained. Your new mantra should be "you reap what you sow." Play it on repeat when she complains. Wow, your sister is a special kind of doodlebug. It all sounds so delightful. The holidays must be so fun. I don't think you're an a-hole. I think your sister likes to stir the pot, and your husband is past done with her crap. At least your husband has agreed to disengage. How much or how little you want to be involved in the planning of your sister's nuptials is up to you. Not your sister, not your husband, you. Last story. Am I the a-hole for how I handled my brother's girlfriend trying to force me to babysit? I am 30 female. I have a brother, Matt, 35, who has been with his girlfriend, Lexi, 33, for 2 years. Lexi has a daughter, Bella, 5, and I have a daughter who is 3 years old. We all live in the same city, but Matt and Lexi live in suburbs, and I live in a city center, so about 45 minutes away. While I see Matt on average every 3 weeks, I only see Lexi and Bella every 2/3 months at my parents' house or for occasions/gatherings. 2 days ago, I got a text from Lexi asking me to babysit Bella on Wednesday because she would not be at school due to teachers being on strike. She said she forgot about the strike and had not taken the day off work and had also made social plans for after her shift ended. I said no to babysitting and thought that was that. Then yesterday around lunchtime, I was having a skin treatment when one of my cleaners came to tell me that Lexi had dropped off Bella. The cleaner had answered the door, and Lexi had said she had arranged to leave Bella with us, and the cleaner was unaware this wasn't a plan and let her in, and Lexi then left. I was livid. I immediately called Lexi, and after 4 declined calls and voicemails, I sent her a text saying if she didn't return for her daughter within 15 minutes, I was going to call the police to say she had abandoned her child. I find my husband to tell him what is going on, and he calls Matt and tells him to sort this out. A few minutes after speaking to Matt, Lexi appears. She marched straight into the den where Bella is watching TV, saying how evil we were for telling Matt and threatening to call the police. I tried to get her to come and speak in the study so Bella couldn't hear, but she just kept going on. I reminded her that she intentionally abandoned her child, but she kept going on about how she was desperate and needed to go to the social arrangement and how she never has time to do anything. I reiterated that be that as it may, she can't just leave Bella with us when we didn't agree to it. Lexi kept bringing up excuses until my husband lost it and told her in no uncertain terms to leave. By this point, Bella was in hysterics, and Lexi seemed totally frazzled. This has since turned into a big thing. Lexi has been posting cryptic things on social media about how hard it is to be a mother when people you expect to be there for you won't help you. I've received texts from her saying Bella is devastated to find out that we don't like her, and I've now blocked Lexi. My parents have heard about it, and while my mother is firmly on my side, my dad said, was it really worth upsetting Bella when she was already there? Matt says that while Lexi was in the wrong, once she had left, we probably should have just kept Bella and argued about it later. Matt also thinks my husband owes Lexi an apology for intimidating her, which I don't think he does. Not the a-hole. I reminded her that she intentionally abandoned her child, but she kept going on about how she was desperate and needed to go to the social arrangement and how she never has time to do anything. Cry me a river. Every parent has to make sacrifices. This woman dumped her child on your doorstep after you said no to watching her child because she wanted to socialize? It wasn't an emergency. She just didn't want to cancel her plans. The number of parents who don't realize they need to sacrifice things for their kids is pretty shocking. I didn't realize it was as bad as it was until I started following AITA. OP's not the a-hole. Lexi 100% abandoned her child. If you were nicer than me, I would have just called the cops. Not the a-hole. You did the right thing calling Lexi to come get her kid. If you had let Bella stay, Lexi would think she could drop off her kid anytime, knowing that you would end up keeping her. No one owes Lexi an apology. It's her fault her Bella got so upset. Not the a-hole. You refused already. And if this social arrangement was so important, then she should have hired a babysitter earlier, rather than leaving her child at someone's place, who clearly stated they aren't okay with babysitting. She had 2 days to find someone, yet she chose not to, so it is a deliberate choice. Moreover, you did ask her to talk in private, so that the kid won't hear the argument. But since she's the one who didn't listen, I don't see how it is your fault at all.